Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mary Ann Monteleone. Welcome on to LIBOR's Wednesday webinar. We're glad that you're here with us today. We have a very special presentation, but while we let Beth set up, I'd like to talk to you about another special presentation tomorrow. Every 3 years, all realtors across the country must complete 2.5 hours of Realtor Code of Ethics training. And this December 31st is the close of the 3-year cycle. LIBOR has a very special presentation tomorrow free to LIBOR members, which will satisfy your Code of Ethics training. It's National Real Estate Ethics Day tomorrow with Lee Brown, who is a national trainer. So LIBOR has participated and committed to be part of National Real Estate Ethics Day, and it's free of charge to all LIBOR members, and you can register. We have over 1,200 realtors registered. You can register by going to lirealtor.com/Ethics Day 2021 and reserve your seat. It's not too late. The program is from 1 to 4 p.m. and again, it's free. It will satisfy your Code of Ethics responsibility. Be done. I think there's less than 200 days to do it. So I wanted to take a minute to encourage you to still register. It's not too late. Today we have a very special presentation with Beth O'Connor. She's a technology trainer for LIBOR, and it's on MLS forms. Many of our members have requested, and her classes are very popular. Hopefully she is not a new face to you. So without further delay, I turn it over to Beth O'Connor. Welcome, Beth.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Welcome, everybody. I am glad you've joined us. I think this is probably an overdue webinar that we covered the required forms. Some of you may be new members, some of you may be longtime members and subscribers and participants in the One Key MLS, but it's probably good every once in a while to go back to the basics. So let's do it. This will not go all the way to 1 o'clock. I think we'll probably be able to get this done in maybe 40 minutes, including your questions. So we are recording. It'll be posted on lirealtor.com/COVID, probably by the end of the week, I would think. And I'll make sure it's also on Stratus News, the recording of this. So if you want to share it with other agents in your office and things like that, you'll be able to do that. So I did put my email address up here, but it's in small letters because I can be hard to reach when I'm teaching. But the most important email address for you is customerservice@lirealtor.com. There's 6 or 7 of them who are fully trained in everything I'm going to show you today. So whenever you have a question about forms, you can call them or email them. They work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, all right? So I just want to make sure if you want to take a picture of any of my screens, you're welcome to do that. And as I said, we are recording. So let's move on. All right, so one thing I really want to make sure you're aware of is that if you're not using the right forms, you may get in trouble. Let's just put it that way. MLS regularly audits new listings. 1 out of every 50 new listings is randomly audited to make sure it has the right paperwork. And if a listing gets extended, 1 of 25 are audited whenever the extensions come through. And again, it's random. There's no way to know whether or not you're going to get picked for an audit. And if you haven't complied with the MLS rules and these forms, there will be action. There will be fines and perhaps even a rules hearing on that. So let's make sure you're clear on what forms you need and when you should use them. So we'll really cover everything, I think, with that. Now, when you take a new listing, there's really 3 different groups of forms. It can be overwhelming, all the things you need when you take a brand new listing. On the MLS side, you have to get the exclusive right to sell or rent agreement signed. That's your listing agreement, or also sometimes called the listing contract. That's where you agree on a commission. The seller signs agreeing to the date the property is coming on the market, the date the property comes off the market. Okay, that is a required contract. Now, your office may have a separate listing agreement contract that they use. You do not have to use the MLS one, but it's just a legal contract that you can list the property for sale and that you're due a commission when it sells or rents. Now, there's a second form that everybody uses called the property data section. That's the details. That's not a legally required form. I'll go over that in a little bit. And for new listings, you may also need a coming soon. If the property isn't ready to be shown, we're going to spend some time talking about what you can do with coming soon there. And then I just listed the New York State forms. You are required legally. This is not an MLS requirement. Your lead paint, fair housing, agency disclosure, and property condition disclosure. Those are all also required forms. And your broker may also have required forms. At this point in time, a lot of you are posting and getting things signed regarding COVID. You may have office forms regarding showings, lockbox, things like that. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on some of the variation of this, okay? Let's talk about coming soon. We're going to talk about the rule, and then I'll go over the forms. I'm going to talk particularly about two new rules that I think need attention. So this is a great new opportunity for you called Coming Soon. So if you take a listing today, June 16th, it may not be ready for showings. It may need some work. A lot of times the sellers will agree to clear out the basement and the attic, some closets. Maybe they're going to have a couple of rooms painted or some carpeting pulled up, things like that. That's what this is intended for. Properties that you're taking the listing today and you're going to show it maybe in another 10 days. The maximum is 14 days. If it's not ready in 14 days, you're going to have to change the status to off market, okay? But if you say you're going to, well, we'll talk about that when we get to the form. I just wanted to mention that. But you'll choose an on-market date. It can't be more than 14 days from the listing date. And then at that date, it automatically, Stratus will convert it to an available listing. During the coming soon period, the property cannot be shown to anyone. No one, none of your clients, none of your office clients, no one can see the property during the coming soon status. And this is really a protection for your commission. So if you take a listing today and it's not ready to be shown, you still want protection. I had an agent in class last week. She took the listing. She did not use coming soon, but the property was not ready to be shown. And a lot of neighbors saw things being cleared out. The garage was being cleared out, and they realized that the elderly person had died. And the neighbors all started coming and inquiring, and this is such a crazy market, they made an offer. She did not have a legally signed contract for protecting her in this situation. So she post-dated or predated her listing agreement for the future. So she had no protection. So this is a really great protection for you. We'll talk about the form in just a minute. The second form we're going to talk about is for office exclusives. There's a brand new rule called Clear Cooperation, and it's basically discouraging you from taking office exclusives and discouraging your sellers from this particular status. But if you do take an office exclusive, you can't advertise it. You're welcome to take an office exclusive, but the rule says you cannot advertise it. You can't put a yard sign up if it isn't on Stratus. You can't market it on your website if it isn't on Stratus. You can't use social media. If you violate that, if you do put up a yard sign and the property is not on MLS, it's a $2,500 fine, okay? And if you see someone else doing it, take a picture of that yard sign. Make sure you look carefully if it's on Stratus or not before you send it to the MLS staff. But if you do take an exclusive, you have to send the listing agreement and the signed exclusive form to dataentry@lirealtor.com. I'll show you that form. And again, if you see violations, customer service at lirealtor.com. So this is new. And it's to discourage office exclusives because in In the opinion of your MLS, the owners and sellers are best served by listings being put on the MLS system, okay? So where can you find the forms, all right? All of the forms, they're available in a couple different places, but I'm gonna focus on where it is on Stratus. Right in the One Key MLS Links menu, you'll see MLS Forms. I've circled it there in red and highlighted it in yellow. I'll talk later about how you can find them on Documents on Demand, on LI Realtor, and I'll mention Instanet, of course, but we're gonna focus on this spot for your MLS Forms. So here's the list of what you'll find when you go to MLS Forms from the Stratus Info Center. The first section is your property data section. Sometimes you'll see PDS for property data section. These are really, we'll go over all of these forms, but I just want to make sure the top section, those 5 forms are not legally required. They're optional for you. But the lower part are your required forms for MLS, okay? We're going to go through all of them. All right, your exclusive right to sells are here. Some explanations of things are in here as well. So it's a very good idea for you to go through this carefully. I would recommend you open this up when you have some time and take a half an hour, maybe even an hour, and go through each one of these forms. Open it up and read it and make sure you're clear on what each form says and why you would want to use it. So let's go through them. All right, so when you take a new listing, you're going to have the exclusive right to sell agreement filled out, okay? Exclusive right to sell in this case does not mean an exclusive, an office exclusive. This is more of the legal term, exclusive right to sell, meaning that if they sell the property, you will be owed a commission, okay? As opposed to exclusive agency, which means if they find the buyer, they don't have to pay you a commission. That's not really used that much anymore. But this is the form where you would put in your listing date, right? And when the listing will expire. If it can't go on MLS right away, if it's less than 3 days, so for example, in this case, today's the 16th, but we're going to put it into Stratus on the 18th because it is, there's just a couple of things that have to be done, but it can be shown on the 18th. So that will cover you. It's less than 3 days, okay? So you'll put your commission arrangement. The actual date of this contract is really what's on the bottom of it, where everybody signs it. The last date at the bottom of this form is the legal listing date, okay? So just pay attention to that. If everybody doesn't sign it until the 17th or 18th, then the listing date is not the 16th, okay? All righty. Now, the next form when you take a new listing is not a required form. I just pulled up the residential, but we have these for rental, condos and co-ops, land, and commercial listings. This is simply a gathering tool for you to put the information about the property together. Now, with all our new fields in Stratus, this is now an 8-page document, all right? And it's really intended for you to sit down with the seller, go through what are they leaving in the house, you know, what kind of oil, do they have oil or gas, and all those specifics. Get those details ahead of time before you go and you sit down in Stratus to fill them out. Lots of these now are required fields. The high school and the middle school and all of those things, a lot of them now are going to be required. So you want to fill this out as completely as possible before you sit down on Stratus and put it on the market, okay? At the very end, if you want the owner to sign this, maybe you feel better just having them sign off on the specific details. It might protect you a little bit. It's not required, but I know a lot of agents do feel better having all of this, what they're going to put in Stratus, even the description of the home, what they're saying about the house, have them sign off on it, and maybe give yourself a little extra protection, but it's optional, okay? Now, if the listing is not ready to be shown, we've got our contract signed today, but they're gonna clean out the basement and they're gonna get a couple of rooms painted, and they do not think it's gonna be ready to show until the 23rd, okay, which is 1 week from today, right? Wednesday, the 23rd is 1 week from today. So you need this separate form filled out. In addition to that other form, you need this form filled out saying when it will be able to be shown, okay? Now, if, let's say that on the 23rd, they're still not finished. Painters are still in there. It's not ready to be shown. So you're going to push that off for another week, let's say to June 30th. Is 14 days is the maximum you can extend this to. So if that happens, get them to sign this again with the new date of June 30th, go into Stratus and edit your listings on market date, okay? And that would be the easiest way to get that done, all right? Now, if it gets finished earlier, if the work is done on the 20th, then just go into Stratus again and edit your listing as on market date of June 20th, and then it will automatically become an available listing, okay? This is really a great tool to protect your commissions, and I really hope more of you will use it. Read through everything that's on here. I'm not gonna read it to you. I know you're perfectly capable of going through this all. Everything I've covered and said is all in this text on the form here, okay? I'm gonna just check for questions periodically here. Let's see. Oh, it's a long question. When using the residential property data section, you can add to the agent-only remarks and public remarks to enhance what you have written down when with the seller. I thought what was on this form could not be changed on MLS. I guess I'm really not sure exactly what you're saying. If you have your seller sign that form and then you decide to change the remarks, it's up to you whether or not you want the seller to, it's an optional form. They don't have to sign off on what you put on Stratus, the details about the house. I hope that helps. Okay, let me just move that out of the way. All right, so now let's talk about if you were to take an office exclusive. For some reason, the seller says, I don't want this on MLS, okay? And make sure they understand that if they say that they don't want it on MLS, it won't be advertised. It won't show on your company website. You can't put a sign on the lawn. You can't email everybody about it. You can simply verbally tell other people in your office about this. And if they have a client, they can come and see it. But no advertising is permitted. That's the new rule in your MLS, okay? So when you do that, if the owner does that, they need to carefully read this. And we're trying to explain to sellers here the benefits of the MLS and why this cooperation between MLS agents is in their best interest, okay? I think we can all agree that exclusive listings taken in the past have primarily been for the listing agent's benefit, not so much for the seller's benefit. It's pretty rare that somebody says, but I see some questions in here. Can another agent advertise an office exclusive? Well, they wouldn't know about it. If they're in your office, they can't advertise. No one can advertise an office exclusive. No one, okay? It's a new rule called clear cooperation, okay? And all of the information about this and some videos about this are on the One Key site. The corporate site. It's onekeymlsny.com. Let me just put that in your, I'm going to put that in your chat here. The One Key corporate site, ny.com. The ny is what takes you to the corporate site as opposed to the consumer site. Doesn't have the ny in it, okay? If you go to the help section, you'll see videos and webinars all about office exclusive. I see a question, is this rule a New York State rule? Absolutely not. It's an NAR rule. The National Association of Realtors came down with this clear cooperation rule. Your MLS did not come up with it on their own. It came from, it's a mandate from NAR now that your listings cannot be advertised unless they're on the MLS system, okay? So hope that's helpful. All right, I know that's a big change in your rules. Now, if you take a price change on a listing, you're going to use what's called the status change form. So I have one here for you. We're going to just check off that it's a price change, put the new price, put the date, and get the seller's signature on this. Now, all of these forms you're just going to keep in your folder. There's no requirement anymore. Years ago, you used to have to send these forms to MLS. I don't know if anybody else remembers that. It shows how long I'm with MLS. You're just going to keep these in your files, all right? Keep these paper. Your office may also require a copy, but the MLS doesn't require a copy of this. But they may call you. They may call you and say, can I have a copy of your status change? And you better be able to produce it, okay? So price change is pretty simple. Get them every single time you do a price change, get a new form signed, okay? Keep it in your forms, folder, I should say. Now, any other listing changes, so maybe there's a change in the commission agreement or some other information on the listing changes, maybe this is not for extensions or anything that would be in this list here, but any other changes, you would use the status change form, okay? Okay, now let's talk about what a TOM is, all right? A temporarily off the market, a TOM, which is fun for me because both my husband and son are TOMs, and so I have fun with this, with what's a TOM, besides being the two closest people in my life, all right? So a temporarily off the market is to be used anytime a property can't be shown for 3 or more days, okay? For any reason, 3 or more days. If you cannot let a realtor in the house for 3 or more days, you have to mark it as a temporarily off the market. You have to do that. That's the rule, okay? If it's just 2 days, that's fine. You don't have to change it at all if it can't be shown. If the open house is, today is Wednesday, and the open house is on Friday, that's fine. You don't have to take it off the market. But 1, 2, 3 is Saturday. If it can't be shown on Saturday, until Saturday, you have to put it as a temporarily off the market, okay? That's also a new rule. So let's say there's a family emergency, okay? Could be a COVID thing or death in the family, something happens and the owners just say, listen, we can't do any showings for the next week. You must have this form signed and as a temporarily off the market, if you can get the seller's signature. I know with a death in the family, that may be difficult. But now I see a question coming in about open houses. If the first open house is a week away, then you have to either put it as a coming soon. That would be when you would use the coming soon. If the first open house, it can't be shown until that open house, that would be a coming soon listing, and the date of the open house would be your on market date, okay? I hope that's helpful. So it doesn't matter when, whatever the reason is, if it can't be shown, it doesn't matter when the open house is or what the reason is that it can't be shown, it just has to be put as temporarily off the market, okay? I know not, a lot of people are not properly following this right now. So just be very, very aware. I see a question. Is there a gap? So whenever there is a gap of 3 or more days for no showings, it has to be put as temporarily off the market. That's right, 3 or more days. It's really kind of simple. I think people don't like it, but it's a very simple rule, okay? Here's another rule that might come up. Maybe they're gonna do some renovation right in the middle of the listing, okay? It's been on the market for a month and they finally decide to get that bathroom renovated because it hasn't sold. Now I know in this market that's not happening, but this market won't last forever. So if they're gonna have a renovation of a bathroom and it's gonna take 5 days, you have to get this form signed. You have to go into Stratus and change the status to temporarily off the market. So let me make sure I'm explaining this. It's not just the form you have to get signed. You then have to go to Stratus, add, edit, and change the status of your listing if it can't be shown. You all are annoyed when you call to see a listing and show a listing and the agent says, we're not doing any showings until the open house on Sunday. Well, why is it listed as an available listing? It shouldn't be. Or you call about a listing and they say, no, they're having the bathroom renovated. Well, why is it showing as an available listing? It should not. Okay, so this is going to solve that eventually. This is going to solve that problem. Temporarily off the market, the question is, how long can it be? As long as it needs to be. Could be 6 months. Maybe there's a death for 6 months. The listing wasn't due to expire until a year. But if it's longer than that, we might need to be thinking about a withdrawal, something like that. But it can be as long as it needs to be. Okay. Just don't leave your listings on Stratus if they can't be shown. Don't do it. Okay. So all right. So here's a big one. So the listing gets an acceptable offer. The owner agrees verbally, or maybe they even just sign a sales agreement. Okay. Which is, let's say official. That's not the legal contract. The legal contract is the one that takes a month or two and gets drafted usually by attorneys and signed by all the parties, okay? But if you get a verbal offer and the seller says, yes, we'll sell it to those people, this is good, let's move forward with getting a contract. And the seller says, I don't want to continue showing it, okay? They have every right to continue showing it if they verbally accepted an offer. It's their decision. But a lot of sellers would say, no, let's not jeopardize this. I don't want to be. It happened when I sold my first house. My broker said to me after we accepted an offer, he said, I got some interest. Somebody else wants to see the house. I think they're very interested. And I said, no. Let's just see how this plays out. I feel very good about this. I don't want to show it unless this falls through. Okay. So if the owner requests not to be shown, you must go have this form signed, temporarily off the market, and go into Stratus and change the status of that listing. Use the ML number, status change to temporarily off the market, okay? Now, when you get the contract signed, you're gonna use this form and mark it as pending and go into Stratus and mark it as a pending listing. But let's all be clear, a listing isn't in contract until all parties have signed that legal contract, right? Verbal offers and sales agreements, that's really just a step on the way to contracts, okay? All right, we'll talk a little more about that in a second. Now, let's say that accepted offer, something falls through. The seller finds out that the potential buyer is not going to get approved for the mortgage. Something's happened, that they said they could come up with this down payment, and in fact they couldn't. And they say, that's off the table. That offer is rejected. It's off the table. Then you're going to put it back on the market, right? You're going to fill out this form. You're going to call it back on the market from a temporarily off the market, have them sign it, go into Stratus and make that change, okay? So it can be shown again. Be back on as a BOM, a bomb, BOM, back on market, okay? So we have toms and bombs. All right. Now, if the listing is due to expire and hasn't sold, then you may want to extend it. The seller may say, listen, let's try another 6 months, something like that. And I know that's not really happening these days, but it will again. So the original listing date for this one was June 16th, but we're going to extend it to December 16th. Get them to sign this. Now, this is one that MLS will definitely audit for. Okay, they will ask you for copies of this agreement randomly. Just if they see a listing date extended, the expiration date is moved to a future date, they may ask you for a copy of this signed form. Okay, so make sure you get this signed. Let's see, I see a question here. Can you have the seller email or text as a form of signature? I would say for forms like this, use the digital signings in Instanet. You really all need to be using that. I'm not really comfortable with having them digitally, just send you an email agreeing. That's really not the rule. The rule is that you have to use this form, okay? Because you want to make sure your seller really understands every step of the process, okay? Now somebody said here, do you still need, let's see, what if it's going from back on the market to pending status? Do you still need that form? I don't actually think this has to be used anytime a pending listing, but let me show you. I think my next slide is going to show you what I would do. I would feel comfortable, but I don't think this is necessarily required. But if the contract has been fully executed and you expect it to be closed, the new status is pending, I would maybe have the seller sign off on this before I mark it as a pending listing on Stratus. But that's not required. That's up to you. Personally, I'd be one of those people. I'd be cranking out the forms. I'd have them digitally signed. The seller can do it in less than 10 seconds. They can sign that form right from their email. No more faxing forms, no more emailing a form and having somebody print it and scan it and send it back to you. You should do this all digitally, okay? In the old days, all these forms was really a burden on the agent, but now it's not a burden because it's all done digitally. You fill out the form digitally and then you get it signed digitally and everybody's done, okay? All right. Now, if a listing gets canceled, which means they're taking it off the market for whatever reason, and you're not going to hold them to any commission obligation. That's called a canceled listing. In the past, we would have called this a release. The name of the form was a release, and the name of the status was release, withdrawn release. Now we call it canceled. It's just completely canceled. Listing is canceled. You can read this when you have time. No negotiations are pending, and there's no commission obligation on the part of the seller, okay? That's called a cancellation. That's one of our forms. And then if it's withdrawn from the market, but there are commission obligations on the part of the owner, you're concerned maybe that they want to take it off with you and then may relist it to someone else, or maybe they spoke to someone personally that they want to sell it to and kind of get away from not having to pay you a commission. You make sure you get this form signed, and this will hold them to that commission. They have to sign it if you're going to withdraw it from the MLS. And then, of course, as with all of these forms, you go into Stratus, you change the status of the listing to withdrawn in this case. Okay, let me just see. I think I've got that. Okay, good. All right. Now, a lot of these forms are also on lirealtor.com. A lot of you have used this for years, documents on demand. So you go to lirealtor.com, you go to member area, you're going to have to log in, use your Stratus login to get to the documents on demand. And let me just show you the list here. So you have different groups here. You have all those MLS listing forms that I just showed you. Then you have some MLS rules complaint forms and offer assistance forms. Then you have your New York State disclosure forms. And then you have a bunch of other legal forms that you have access to. I was just covering this part for today's webinar, but you should certainly take some time to go through everything that's available. In many cases, your office is going to have a form for you to use for many of these scenarios, but some of you work for very small companies, or maybe you're even a sole practitioner, and maybe you need LIBOR's help with some of these legal documents. So you'll have some options here for these legal forms, okay? All righty, so I'm going to stick around for questions on this, and I'll answer all the questions you have. But if you have questions after we're done today, I want you to reach out to customer service. They're there Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. They are off this Friday to honor Juneteenth, but they'll be back on Monday. So go ahead and write your questions in the questions box if you have any. Otherwise, just know that this is going to be recorded to and saved to lirealtor.com/COVID. That's where you'll be able to find this webinar when it's completed. All right, so questions, let's see. All right. If homeowner wants the house shown after accepting verbal offer, is a signature required? I wouldn't think so, Joy. I don't see why. That there's really nothing has changed. But certainly if you feel better about that, a lot of things you may have signed just because it makes you feel more comfortable. All right. Let's see, Michael is saying, is there a legend for all the abbreviations used on Stratus? Yes, I have that. Let me see if I can put it in your, I'm gonna try and put it in your chat. Let's see, oh no, it's not gonna let me. Michael, Michael, just give me your email and I'll email that to you, okay? All right, Renee is asking where this recording will be. Go to lirealtor.com. I'll put it in the message, lirealtor.com/COVID. Okay. All right. All right, yes. So Michael, I got your email, and Natalia got your email as well. Oh, everybody wants this. Maybe I should just email it to everybody who registered. How about I do that? Everybody who was registered, I'll put you in Excel and I'll email you that abbreviations list, okay? I'll do that because a lot of you are asking for it. Scott is asking for coming soon on social media. There must be the on-market date as well there, correct? I don't know that you have to put the date, but it has to say coming soon. If you take a coming soon listing, you can advertise it. It just has to say coming soon, okay? I don't think you have to put the date that it's coming soon on. Let's see. Vincenzo is asking, what about if seller asks to show it only on the weekends, what do you do? That is very interesting. That would be in your showing instructions, but I don't think you would have to put it as temporarily off the market for the entire week. Yeah, I don't think that you'll have any problem with that. If that's the seller's instructions only to show it on the weekends, and that's clearly put in your listing, make sure that's in the remarks. And in the broker remarks, only show on weekends, then I would say it's not necessary to take it off the market every week. Let's see, Tina says, when you have a coming soon, once it goes on the market as new, do you still have the 2-day period not to show? Yes, I guess you do, Tina. I knew you all would find little ways around this. Juan is asking, I have a listing that the tenant only give one showing appointment per week. Same thing. Make sure that if the property can only be shown 1 day a week, you put that in your instructions. There's no need to take it off the market if that's clearly in your instructions for the other agents. They'll understand, okay? Let's see, anything else? I don't see any other, Michael is asking, data enter, in your listings, you have now the fields fence, fencing, and fenced. And Michael's asking the same question I've been asking. What in the world is the difference between a fence, fencing, and fenced? I think if the whole yard is fenced, I would probably check all three. If part of the yard is fenced, I would probably just say it has a fence or fencing. I don't know. You could check them all. I really have never gotten a good explanation of that. Joy's asking, do you need to have the sellers re-sign if you shorten the date on the coming soon? Probably a good idea just to have them initial that off. Let's see, Bianca, I don't think I'm going to be able to answer this, Bianca. She says, since Governor Cuomo lifted restrictions, if the buyer doesn't want to wear a mask, is that okay? Or should I clear it with the sellers? Well, I would clear it with the sellers, absolutely. Yeah, talk to your broker about any of those COVID regulations, restrictions, property things. Speak to your broker or your office manager about that, okay? Yes, Denise, all of these forms are on Instinet. Let me make sure everyone is clear that that would be my first choice for you. All of these forms, you fill them out, you get them signed. you have a transaction folder, you have a digital, instead of having these silly paper folders, right, with all that documentation printed, you have a digital one, right? You create the digital one in Instanet, and every form is digitally inside of this. I had an agent just tell me yesterday in class, she was in Spain. She got asked for a form by an attorney. She did not have to worry about the fact that she didn't have this folder. She simply logged into Instanet from Spain and sent off the form that was needed. You all need to learn Instanet, okay? It's one of the best things you get from your dues. What you pay in dues, Instanet is really up there. Let's see, customer service said you need to have a seller sign a letter indicating days to show and post letter online. Oh, Susan, I didn't know that. Okay, so if they only want to show it certain days of the week, have them sign that and post it as an attachment to the listing. That's so great. Oh, thanks, Marianne. Marianne posted for all of you where you can find our Instanet classes. We also have, if you look at that yellow light bulb on Stratus, a lot of free webinars and tutorials from Instanet, and all of the things we teach are in that yellow light bulb. So take a peek and look at that. So I'm going to close our webinar for now, and I hope that you found it helpful. Email me if you need anything else, or certainly you can email customer service. And I'm really glad we got together on this today, and I hope you found it really helpful. So have a great day, everyone.